Definitely not as close as I wanted this game to be, but a win is a win. The Dolphins beat the Steelers 16-10 on Sunday Night Football. Wasn't very pretty, but it was a must-win game, and the Dolphins defense was able to lead the way to get this one done. Season's kind of back on track. Dolphins are now up to 4-3 on the season. Next week you have the Lions. The week after the Bears. Then after that you have the Browns, and then a bye week, and then the Texans. That's 4 very, very winnable games. And hypothetically, if you can win those 4 games over the next 5 weeks, you move up to 8-3 on the season before that tough stretch on the West Coast. So you got to take it game by game, but this was just a start to that 5-game winning streak, which I hope can go. But obviously, Tua makes his return tonight on primetime. He threw 21 for 35, 261 yards, 1 touchdown, and 0 interceptions. That interception column was lucky that it stayed at 0 because it easily could have been up to 4. But this was his worst game of the season that he's played in other than the Bengals game. This was his worst game of the season. He still threw for 260 yards and a touchdown with 0 interceptions. You could just tell how much different this offense was. A bit rusty, going to talk about that, but just through the first couple drives, this offense was just vibing. It's in a flow. But on the ground, Raheem Mostert, 16 for 79. Chase Edmonds, 7 for 17. Chase Edmonds with 2 crucial drops, one of them being on a 3rd and 7 in like the second or third quarter. Raheem Mostert is by far the best running back in Miami, and I think it's clear to tell. Tua Tagovailoa, 4 for 15. Every time he ran the ball, at least 2 or 3 times that he ran the ball out of those 4 rushes, he would try to truck headfirst into some Steelers player like he was Derrick Henry out there. I don't know what he was thinking, but Dolphins fans in the stadium were holding their breath. I had a heart attack on some of those, but got to be very careful. Got to be very careful there. On the receiving side, Jalen Waddle, 4 for 88. Tyreek Hill, 7 for 72. Trent Sherfield, 3 for 44. Mostert, 4 for 30. And a touchdown. And then Gesicki, 3 for 27. It may just be me, but I'm just going to quickly mention this, that through all the quarterbacks that we've seen so far this season, Tua, Teddy, Skyler, every single one on the roster, it seems to me that Trent Sherfield has kind of overtaken the spot as wide receiver 3. Cedric Wilson is kind of looking like a free agent bust. Maybe not as bad as Will Fuller, but it hasn't been looking great. Same with Chase Edmonds. But Eric Uzukama has not really played that much this season. Craycraft has been active. He's on the 53-man, but he's just not getting many snaps. But it's looking like those top 3 receivers on this team now is Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Trent Sherfield. And on the Steelers side, Kenny Pickett, 32 for 44, 257 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. 3 of them. On the ground, Najee Harris, 17 for 65. Pat Freiermuth in the receiving game, 8 for 75. George Pickens, 6 for 61 with a touchdown. And Deontay Johnson, 5 for 42. Chase Claypool, 5 for 41. I'm going to talk about this first drive quickly because the offense kind of went the complete opposite way as for what I thought it would look like. I thought you start the game off, maybe first 2 or 3 drives you're kind of rusty, and throughout the rest of the game, you start clicking. Your offense is flowing, firing on all cylinders, and you're looking good. But it went the complete opposite. First 2 or 3 drives, the offense is looking perfect, and then after that, the offense didn't score any points in the second half. Only 3 points in the second quarter, and the offense did not look too great. It was 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out. But luckily, the defense was able to step up and get this win. The inactives for this game, Keon Crossen was out, Kader Kohu was out. We know Nick Needham, Byron Jones. That's 4 out of our top 5 corners out for this game. The 3 active cornerbacks on the roster are Xavier Howard. Thank God that he was able to play. Noah Igbenogany. A lot to talk about him in a bit. And then Justin Bethel, who's a special teams player, but he's just listed as a cornerback. And Noah and Justin Bethel both coming up with clutch interceptions. Obviously, Elijah Campbell is able to play corner. Javon Holland played every single defensive snap. Brandon Jones, now we just got word from Mike McDaniel that he's now going on the IR, so he's going to be missing at least 4 games, which really sucks for this secondary group. But before we even move any further, I'm going to add something else to every single weekly game review, and that's going to be my team MVP for the week. I'm going to have 3 guys basically every week. if it's a loss, I may not be even in the mood to do it. But since it's a win, I'm gonna have my 3 guys right here. Number 1 is going to be Noah Igbenogany. Number 2, Jalen Phillips, and then number 3 is going to be Teron Armstead, who's really the anchor for this O-line. No sacks allowed on Tua Tagovailoa. That is probably the most underrated thing about this game. Tua did not really get hit once, which is just really, really nice. But Noah Igbenogany had an atrocious game, to be honest. I was about to say great game, but he was awful. He is terrible. Noah Igbenogany, I don't even know how he's on the 53-man roster. George Pickens, multiple times where he had the ball. First of all, that one touchdown catch was a 50-50 ball. George Pickens made it look like a 95-5 ball. Multiple times where he had the ball, or where George Pickens got the catch, Noah Igbenogany was playing zone coverage. Like, it was man coverage, but it looked like he was playing zone coverage. He plays 10 yards off of this guy. He is atrocious. We need Crossan and Kohu to play next week against the, the Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Josh Reynolds may cook our guys if Crossan and Kohu can't play. Needham's going to be out for the season. Byron Jones, at this point, I'm going to say Byron Jones is going to be out for the season because it's too much of a mess to even handle. But Noah Igbenogany somehow made up for all of his messes by saving the game for us. That's why he's on this list. That's the only reason why he's on this list. Because if Pickett throws that ball a little bit deeper, George Pickens may have the game-winning touchdown, the game losing for us technically, and Noah Igbenogany literally, I still talk about him, but definitely not in a positive way. So thank you, Noah. I take back everything I said. Not really, because you still suck, but thank you for winning this game for us. Jalen Phillips, he didn't really show up for the first couple weeks of the season, but he made his presence known last night. I think 1.5 sacks, 3.5 on the season, and that's top 10. People don't even realize 3.5 sacks for the first 7 games may not seem like a lot for Jalen Phillips, who is obviously poised to make a big-time leap this season, but he's top 10 in sacks right now. He had 6 run stops last night. He was just phenomenal. He was on the ball every single play. His effort is incredible. He'll run from sideline to sideline just to make a tackle. Even if the play is like over. So his effort is really undeniable, and we thank him for that. He's really living up to expectations as that first round pick from 2021. And then also credits to Xavier Howard, who had himself a pretty good game. Deontay Johnson had some catches, but that was basically all with Noah Igbenogany on him, and the catches that George Pickens has, that was with Noah Igbenogany on him too. So basically every time one of them had a catch, they would switch, and then the guy who was guarded by Noah Igbenogany had another catch. So that's just how it went. Pat Freiermuth led the Steelers with receiving. That's because, we're without Brandon Jones for half the game. You're without Kohu. You're without Crossan. Some of the safeties had to play cornerback, so it was just a pretty big mess with all the injuries last night. Neither did Emmanuel Ogbah, didn't even play last night either. But yeah, another thing about this game is that the refs weren't really calling much. There's probably multiple PI calls that weren't being called on both sides. For the Dolphins and the Steelers. Holding calls were a big part. The Steelers had so many holding calls that they were not penalized for. I think on one play where it was the 3rd and 12 where Pickett ran for the first down that led to the George Pickens touchdown. I think it was Melvin Ingram or Jalen Phillips. I can't really remember who, but one of them was being held so badly. I don't know how they missed it. But I do want to talk a little bit about the offense and then more about the defense after. Because like I said before, the Dolphins came out with their first drive scripted. We started with the ball, which, by the way, I hate starting with the ball. I always want to win the toss and defer, get the ball second half, start out on defense. And I think this game was the first game all season where the Dolphins opened up with the ball, but it turned out pretty good. I think I may want to actually keep the ball, start out with the ball from now on. But yeah, the scripted drive was obviously really, really nice. Dolphins opened up with a touchdown, had 2 passes to Tyreek Hill, one to Jalen Waddle for about 20 yards, one to Mike Gesicki, then the last one to Raheem Mostert for the touchdown. The RPO game, we know with Tua out there, that's his number one option to run. And that's his number one choice of success out there. And it was working really, really well for the first drive. Even the second drive, Dolphins were just held short for a field goal. In the end, scored 16 points in the first half. And the Steelers scored 10. It was 16-10 going into halftime. Not a single point was scored in the second half. It's something that we've got to work on for sure. But one thing about Tua, a lot of people, I saw someone on Twitter say, obviously a lot of people want to talk about his accuracy being the best part of his game, which is obviously one of the best parts, but his best part, whoever tweeted it, was that he can finish ugly games, which is something that you're always going to want. The offense was not looking pretty out there. The defense, though, now I'm going to go ahead and talk about that, was phenomenal. Justin Bethel came up with an interception where Chase Claypool just kind of fell down on his own in the first quarter on the second drive of the game for Pittsburgh. Late in the game, the Steelers were driving with about 3 minutes left, and Javon Holland does that thing where he tries to bait the quarterback into throwing. The quarterback doesn't really fall for it that often, but I guess Kenny Pickett, being an inexperienced rookie, he tries to throw to, I think it was Deontay Johnson, and then Javon Holland just comes out of nowhere, picks it off. One thing that I was pretty upset about that nearly lost us the game is that he beats everybody down the sideline, and Kenny Pickett is the only guy left, and he runs out of bounds. Now, it's not the biggest thing because we ended up winning the game, but it was pretty damn close to losing. If there's a quarterback or a kicker or punter back there, you knock him out of the way, no matter what. It's not going to be a roughing the passer call, obviously, because you're the one that has the ball. You got to make that play, Javon. It's fine though, because then Noah Benogany, like I said, it was having an awful game, but he was able to make up for it with the interception at the end. But another thing, last but not least, the play calling was questionable. I will say the play calling was questionable, and I will confidently say that Mike McDaniel was outcoached. But that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's not a good thing, but McDaniel was outcoached by a top 3 head coach in the NFL. Mike Tomlin we're talking about here. It's not if I were to make a prediction on who would be the better coaching, I would pick the Steelers. Mike Tomlin obviously is one of the most experienced coaches in the NFL, one of the most successful quarterbacks in the coaches in the NFL. But there were some play calls. The 4th and 2 everybody was really upset about, with the chance to go up 19-10 in the second quarter, maybe third, where Chase Edmonds got the ball. But if you see that playback, Chase Edmonds had a hole. You have Lee Meichenberg, Connor Williams, basically that left side and the center side, pushing to the right side. Teron Armstead pushing the edge rusher left. Chase Edmonds has a hole right through there, but instead goes right up the middle and is stopped, and it's a turnover on downs. So Chase Edmonds really needs to sit on the bench, and Raheem Mostert needs to play every single offensive snap, because Chase Edmonds cannot do his job. But that'll wrap up. I'm just glad that we got the win. This review is kind of disorganized. I may have another video coming out tomorrow. I probably will about this game. Maybe about the offensive struggles or the defensive success. One of those though. But yeah, I think that this should be one out of many wins for the next couple weeks to come. But just glad that we can take it one game at a time. The Floors Revenge Tour was not successful. Neither was the Minka Fitzpatrick Tour. But that will wrap up. Glad to have Tua back. Glad to have the wins back. That'll wrap up. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.